In the quiet imagination of modern people, pharaohs are often remembered as god-kings, bathed in gold, ruling beside the Nile, with absolute power and eternal glory. Yet beneath this shining surface lay a life that was often unsettling, constrained, and deeply disturbing. From the moment a child was recognized as a future pharaoh, their life ceased to belong to them. They were no longer simply human. They became a living symbol of divine order, expected to embody the gods themselves. Every gesture, word, and decision was watched, recorded, and judged, not just by courtiers, but by priests who believed the fate of the universe depended on the ruler's behavior. A pharaoh's life was not free. It was ritualized, controlled, and heavy with fear. Many pharaohs ascended the throne as children, sometimes as young as 5 or 6 years old. While this might sound like a fairy tale of sudden power, it was often terrifying. Child pharaohs were surrounded by ambitious adults who ruled in their name, manipulated them, or quietly eliminated rivals. These children were dressed in symbols of divine authority before they could fully understand death, betrayal, or politics. Tutors taught them sacred texts, rituals, and military traditions, but rarely prepared them for the brutal reality of palace life. Isolation was common. A young pharaoh could not play freely with other children or form normal friendships. Every relationship carried suspicion, because anyone close might be using affection as a path to power. The pharaoh was believed to be the bridge between gods and humans, responsible for maintaining Ma'at, the delicate balance of order in the universe. If floods failed, crops died, or disease spread, it was not blamed on nature alone. It was blamed on the pharaoh. This belief placed immense psychological pressure on rulers. Droughts or plagues meant whispers in temples and markets that the pharaoh had angered the gods. Rebellions were sometimes justified as divine punishment, making the ruler both sacred and dangerously vulnerable. To rule was to live under constant fear that the world itself might turn against you. Daily life inside the palace was far from peaceful. Intrigue filled the air. Harems were not places of romance, but political minefields. Pharaohs often had multiple wives, many from powerful families or foreign kingdoms, meant to secure alliances. These women lived under constant tension, knowing that producing a male heir could elevate their status, while failure could mean obscurity or worse. Rivalry among wives and concubines was intense, sometimes deadly. There are historical hints of poisonings, secret plots, and curses whispered behind silk curtains. Even royal children were not safe, as succession disputes often ended in quiet assassinations. Physical suffering was also common. Royal mummies revealed that many pharaohs endured painful illnesses. Inbreeding within royal families, meant to preserve divine bloodlines, led to deformities, weak immune systems, and chronic disease. Some pharaohs walked with difficulty, suffered from severe dental infections, or lived in constant pain from bone disorders. Medical knowledge existed, but it was limited and mixed with magic. Treatments involved incantations, animal fat, honey, and sharp instruments. Surgery was performed without true anesthesia, turning illness into prolonged agony. A pharaoh's divinity did not protect them from the slow decay of the human body. Violence surrounded the throne. Pharaohs were expected to be warriors, even if they never set foot on a battlefield. Reliefs show them smiting enemies, towering over defeated foes, reinforcing the image of eternal strength. But real wars were brutal and costly. When military campaigns failed, the blame fell squarely on the ruler. Prisoners were publicly executed or enslaved to demonstrate dominance. In some cases, mass killings were ritualized, turning death into spectacle. The pharaoh had to order these acts, reinforcing power through terror, even if it weighed heavily on their conscience. Trust was rare. Palace guards, officials, and priests constantly shifted loyalties. Assassination attempts were not uncommon. One famous plot against Ramses III involved members of his own harem and court officials, showing how deeply betrayal could run. Pharaohs slept surrounded by guards, yet never truly safe. Poison was a constant fear, leading some rulers to rely on tasters or strict food rituals. Even priests, supposedly devoted to the gods, could turn against a ruler if they felt divine favor had shifted. Death did not bring peace. From early in life, Pharaohs were forced to prepare for their own death in obsessive detail. Tombs were constructed over decades, filled with spells, curses, and treasures meant to secure immortality. This constant focus on death shaped their worldview. Instead of dreaming of the future, pharaohs lived alongside their own funerary plans, watching walls fill with scenes of their afterlife journey. The fear of judgment in the afterlife was intense. If the heart was found heavier than a feather, the soul would be devoured, ending existence forever. Even gods feared this moment, and so did pharaohs. Ironically, despite all preparations, many tombs were robbed. Pharaohs who believed they would rest eternally were stripped of gold and dignity within generations. Their mummies were dragged from coffins, their amulets stolen, their bodies damaged. The eternal peace they sacrificed their lives to secure was often an illusion. In later periods, priests secretly moved royal mummies into hidden caches to protect them, stacking once divine rulers together in dark chambers, anonymous and forgotten. Emotionally, the life of a pharaoh was lonely. Genuine affection was hard to trust. Public appearances demanded perfection, leaving no room for weakness or grief. When loved ones died, mourning was constrained by ritual and politics. Tears were hidden behind ceremonial masks. A pharaoh could not collapse under sorrow. The universe depended on their stability. Over time, this emotional suppression likely created deep inner turmoil. Though history records only stone faces and formal smiles, the disturbing truth is that being a pharaoh was less about power and more about sacrifice. They gave up privacy, freedom, normal family bonds, and even control over their own bodies. They lived as symbols rather than people, worshipped yet feared, exalted yet trapped. Their golden crowns hid anxious minds, aching bodies, and lives ruled by obligation and dread. When we imagine ancient Egypt as a land of eternal splendor, it is worth remembering that at its center stood rulers whose lives were often defined not by luxury, but by isolation, pressure, and an unending closeness to death. And so, as the Nile flows quietly under the moonlight, the stories of these rulers fade into a distant hush. The pharaohs who once commanded gods and men now rest as silent reminders that absolute power can come at a haunting cost, and that even those closest to the divine lived lives filled with fear, pain, and uneasy dreams meant to last forever. Yet rarely did.